It is 2 a.m. in New York, 11 in Sochi, and 4 on a Tuesday afternoon here in Seoul. I'm Conn-young. This is ARIRANG, Korea's only global network. We start with the horrifying building collapse in Korea's southeastern city of Gyeongju that has claimed so many young lives. Now, 10 people have been confirmed dead and more than 100 were injured. And we are getting reports that the rescue and recovery efforts there are in their final stages. But for more on the current situation, let's go live to our Eoh Jin-joo, who is on the line with us from our news center. Jin-joo, what is the latest?
Conn-young, it took only about 10 seconds for the auditorium of a resort hotel in the city of Gyeongju, Gyeongsangnam-do province to collapse on Monday night. Some 560 students from the Busan University of Foreign Studies were in the middle of a welcome event for members of the freshman class when the ceiling started to crumble above a stage set up in the front. As you mentioned, 10 people have been confirmed dead and dozens injured. 1 or 2 people are in critical condition and around 120 have suffered minor injuries. Let's hear one of the students who survived the incident describe it in her own words.
Everyone was sitting comfortably on the ground, but then everyone was heading to the exits all at once, and it was total chaos.
Well, we can only imagine how horrifying that moment was. Now, do they know what caused the incident?
Well, there's a great deal of speculation about the cause of the collapse, but it seems that there are a number of factors at play. What we do know is that the area had gotten a record level of snow over the past week, and the snow piled up on the ceiling was estimated to weigh nearly 150 tons. Now, in addition to that, some say that the auditorium wasn't up to code and that the construction was shoddy, so it seems that there needs to be a deeper investigation into that. The ceiling and outer walls of the auditorium were made of sandwich panels, which are usually used to build temporary structures or storage spaces. Now, sandwich panels are made out of thin steel plates with styrofoam in between and are known to absorb moisture easily. Plus, the building was huge at 900 square meters, but it had no pillars to support the roof, so many think that was why the auditorium could not withstand the weight of the snow.
Well, it definitely seems like there needs to be more investigation into how the construction was taking place at that building. Now, Jin-joo, President Park Geun-hye also ordered a thorough investigation into the case.
Yes, that's right. President Park, during a cabinet meeting this morning, expressed her grief and regret over the tragic incident and offered her condolences to the families of the victims. She asked the government to do its best to support those who were injured and help the families pay for funerals for the deceased. And as you said, she also called for a thorough investigation into the cause of the accident and fundamental measures to prevent such incidents from happening again. She ordered government officials to conduct safety checks on multi-purpose facilities in the East Coast region, which was hit by record snowfall over the past week or so. Conn-young?
Thank you, Jin-joo, and we will check back with you throughout the evening for more developments on that story. That was our Eoh Jin-joo with the latest on the building collapse in Gyeongju, where 10 people, mostly university students, were so tragically killed last night. Well, moving over to another tragic incident, police in Egypt say they believe a suicide bomber carried out Sunday's bus bombing that killed 4 people, including 3 Koreans. This comes as an al-Qaeda-affiliated terrorist group in Egypt has claimed responsibility for the attack. Hwang Sung-hee reports.
Egyptian security forces say a suicide bomber was probably behind Sunday's deadly bus bombing in Sinai that killed 4 people, including 3 Koreans. After reviewing CCTV footage of the attack, police concluded a suicide bomber had boarded the tourist bus and detonated his explosives near the door. A spokesman from Egypt's Interior Ministry said Monday that the preliminary investigation shows some tourists disembarked to get their bags when a man walked onto the bus and an explosion followed when he reached the 3rd step. The bus, carrying mostly Korean tourists, was waiting to cross into Israel at the border when the blast took place. An al-Qaeda-linked Islamist group, Ansar Bayt al-Maqdis, has claimed responsibility for the bombing, saying it had previously warned it was planning an attack. In an online statement Monday, the group promised to continue to target the state's leaders and economy by hitting tourism and exploding the natural gas pipelines, threatening additional attacks in the next few days. Sunday's bombing was the first targeting tourists since the overthrow of President Mohamed Morsi last July, sparking fears Islamic militants are turning to attack Egypt's tourism industry, which is a pillar of the country's economy. Meanwhile, 15 survivors, who are expected to return to Korea on Tuesday, are still in Israel as they are struggling to find a flight home. An official at the Korean embassy said the group is planning to board a flight from Istanbul and added they will arrive in Korea on Wednesday afternoon at the earliest. 11 of the 13 injured Koreans have undergone surgery to remove fragments and debris from their bodies. 2 more will stay in Israel a little longer as they need to have further operations. The bodies of the 3 dead Koreans have also been transferred to Tel Aviv and are undergoing return procedures. 황성희, 아리랑 뉴스.
Now, the attack in Egypt on Korean tourists has brought spotlight on the safety of Korean nationals traveling abroad and increasing threats from terrorists around the world. For an in-depth look into this issue, we are joined live in the studio by Dr. Gyeongju, the head of KLMP Consulting, and of course our regular commentator on this program. Good afternoon to you, Dr. Kim.
Good afternoon.
Now, let's talk about the Korean government's safety measures and protection measures for Koreans traveling overseas.
Right. In my own personal belief, Korean government provides one of the world's best set of protection services for the Koreans traveling overseas. To begin with, we have the call center, consular service call center, where you can reach 24 hours a day, 365 days a week, a year, indeed. And you know, every time there's an airplane landing, and if you're carrying a Korean mobile phone, you will get a text message. And I don't know of other countries actually that are providing such a service. And through that the text message, you receive the direct link to those numbers you can call toll-free when there is an emergency situation. So indeed, that center itself has been placed, I think in my recollection, for the past about 10 years, ever since the several incidents, unfortunate incidents that happened during the early 2000s and the following years leading up to 2004. And so this is a big innovation. And I remember even government of Japan actually wanted to learn from that innovation and wanted to emulate it. I don't know whether they actually implemented action itself, but that's for prevention. And after these unfortunate accidents happen, Korean government can send the emergency dispatch team. Usually they're supposed to be there like the following day. And in this case, it happened as planned, and the dispatch team was there on the spot right there, and they take care of all these administrative things so that the victims could be treated quickly and could be sent back home quickly. So there's a long list of services that are available for Korean citizens abroad, and the Korean government is fully ready and committed to providing full set of services.
Now, I know that the Korea's foreign ministry has a list of countries with different travel risks.
Right.
Now, how are they categorized, and where can we find this out?
Actually, different countries are categorized in 5 groups: alert, and the caution, and self-restraint, and discouragement from travel, and restricted travel. 5 categories are there. And if you go to by the way, this website is for Korean citizens, so it's in Korean only as far as I know. But www.0404, those are numbers, 0404.go.kr, you have a list of countries that are classified according to these 5 different categories. And currently, 5 countries are on the top list, which the Korean government actually de facto prohibits traveling to. Those countries include Iraq, Afghanistan, Yemen, Somalia, and Syria. So you can find those information with detailed information, not only terror threats, but also the health risks and all that in that website. So it's very comprehensive information source that Korean government provides to the Korean nationals.
I wonder where Egypt was classified as.
I forgot to check. I think it was probably in the 4th category, the second one from the top. besides those 5 countries. And that fourth category is quite extensive. Even it includes Russia. I know Russia doesn't like it, and it includes Malaysia.
Wow.
So fourth category has a long list. So I believe Egypt is probably the fourth group right there. But indeed, altogether 5 categories, they have a long list of countries.
Now, how are the trips to the countries with the highest risk controlled?
Actually, the thing is, because of the Constitution, Korean government does not have a full right to limit the movement of Korean people. So what the government does is it actually limits the use of Korean passport. So for those countries that I mentioned, Iraq, Afghanistan, Yemen, Somalia, and Syria, if you want to travel there, you have to submit an application for using the Korean passport. And there's a joint interministerial and interagency committee that's set up, and they review this application and they give you the approval. And you got to have a good reason to travel there, together with a good explanation about how your safety will be guaranteed. Often you're supposed to hire the, what do you call it, the contractors, whatever, the security companies. Right there on the local, and they should have a good reputation. So that's how it's controlled.
Now, despite all these systems in place, the sheer number, the volume of Koreans traveling overseas can be quite overwhelming.
Right. Last year, the estimate was about 14 million. 14 million Koreans traveled overseas. That means pretty much all these Koreans have gone to all corners around the world, almost, virtually speaking. And so that's just a sheer number. And with this top of the world kind of protection service that Korean government has, there still has to be a gap between the quantity of demand for this kind of protection services on one hand, and then supply side there. So often when this kind of unfortunate accidents happen, often the government is being blamed for that. But the sheer amount of and the magnitude of growth of travelers itself is just beyond the system's reach, the way I see it. And because we have fast-growing number of young people traveling to different corners around the world where they want to help people, poor people in poor countries, the situation there and often the security situation there are pretty bad. So there is that increasing trend of higher risk that concerns me. Together with this kind of pilgrimage trips. Pilgrimage trips have been okay, but there have been some Koreans who wanted to spread the religion that they believe in more hostile areas. So that was a factor that has been there for a long time.
Right. I mean, we remember the case a few years ago where one person was actually killed during these kind of religious trips.
Right.
Now, so how could we further enhance the safety of Koreans traveling abroad?
The way I see it, despite the fact that Korean government provides comprehensive information about the risk of these countries where Koreans are traveling, there has to be a fundamental change and improvement in the minds of individual Koreans who travel there, the way I see it. First thing they can start with is using these government-provided information sources. I'm scheduled to travel sub-Saharan Africa in a few days, and I have gone through the list of warnings with regard to this particular country, and that's what I think everyone should do. And more fundamentally, I think in Korea, in Korean the journalism and media, I think we need more international news so that Korean people can understand what's happening around the world and what the risks are in different parts around the world. And together with that, another benefit would be just to have a better understanding as a world community citizen. Korea is supposedly one of the top 10 economies around the world, and I don't think we have sufficient understanding to qualify ourselves as that kind of level yet in terms of the media coverage. And going beyond the travel safety and all that, human suffering, what's happening around the world in Syrian refugee camps in Turkey, for instance, and how massacre is being done in southern South Sudan, for instance. I think our youngsters, and as well as Koreans of all age, should have better understanding about what's happening around the world. And as a part of the consequence of it, I think we will enhance to a greater degree our own safety when we go overseas.
Definitely so. Some kind of an awareness amongst the young Koreans or Koreans in general about what's happening in parts of the world that are not the most favored popular countries to Koreans, not Europe, not US, but different countries that we don't even, many of us are not even familiar with the name of.
So true.
Definitely so. And in that way, I think we can really raise the security level of our travelers abroad.
Definitely.
All right,
definitely.
Dr. Kim Gyeongju, thank you so much for today.
Thank you.
With rapid changes in the global economy, up-to-date business and financial news has never been more essential. See what's making markets tick around the globe. We speak to the experts and cover the biggest financial stories.
North Korea provocation.
Quite good. We received a lot of positive feedback, especially from those abroad.
Now, after a year-long investigation, the United Nations has concluded that there have been systematic, widespread, and grave violations of human rights in North Korea. In a detailed report released Monday, the UN Commission of Inquiry on Human Rights in North Korea defined the abuses as crimes against humanity, which means that most of them were based on policies and decisions made by the North Korean regime in an effort to maintain a grip on power. Well, the UN report is being seen by many as a wake-up call to the world to take action against the human rights abuses being committed in North Korea. The North ally China, however, may put the brakes on international efforts to tackle the issue. Kim Ji-yeon reports.
Although the atrocities laid out in the UN report on the human rights abuses in North Korea have been in the public domain for years, the report is being seen as a renewed call to action. The chairman of the UN inquiry, Michael Kirby, said the report calls for attention from the international community, highlighting the deep regret that was felt after the atrocities of the Second World War came to light.
If only we had known that. Well, now the international community does know. The international community will know. There will be no excusing a failure of action because we didn't know. We do know.
The inquiry conducted by the panel of experts of the UN's Human Rights Council is regarded as the highest profile attempt by the international community to investigate the abuses in the reclusive state, and the evidence gathered here could lay a foundation for future claims in the International Criminal Court. The UN Human Rights Council is expected to adopt a resolution on the issue when the panel formally presents its findings next month. Yet it remains unclear what actions will follow. China, North Korea's longtime ally, will likely block attempts to refer the North to the ICC, using its power as a permanent member of the UN Security Council. As expected, the report has raised questions about its possible impact on relations between North and South Korea. Seoul has welcomed the UN's findings and vowed to cooperate with the international community to improve the human rights situation in the North. North Korea, on the other hand, has flatly rejected the report, saying it will deal strongly with any outside attempts to topple the North Korean regime. The two Koreas made a breakthrough during high-level talks held last week to revive reunions for families separated by the Korean War. The first round of the reunions is scheduled to take place this week. Kim Ji-yeon, ARIRANG News.
Let's now take a look at how the markets closed here in Seoul. Shares ended effectively flat on this Tuesday after the Bank of Japan extended and expanded special loan facilities while keeping its main policy rate on hold, scraping back losses sustained earlier when investors booked profits. Now, at the closing bell, the benchmark Kospi closed nearly flat at 1947, while the tech-heavy Kosdaq was up by nearly 0.7%. On the foreign exchange counter, the Korean currency finished weaker against the greenback at 1,066 won. Now, the Russian city of Sochi used to be a sleepy resort city where the rich and powerful would seek respite on the Black Sea while enjoying winter sports on the mountains. Well, but the city now bustling with tens of thousands of people from all corners of the world is filled with festivities around the clock. Our Olympics correspondent Song Ji-sun filed this report from Sochi.
Practically everyone walking around Sochi is decked out in Olympics merchandise or their team uniform, and those who aren't are lined up at shops.
I went to buy some clothes during 50 minutes. It's cool, I think.
And even if you weren't lucky enough to get a ticket to the games, you can still be part of the Olympic excitement.
Here at downtown Sochi, the Olympic vibe is alive, both among domestic and foreign fans who have gathered here for the Olympics. You can buy souvenirs, watch ongoing games, and cheer for your favorite athletes here at one of the live sites across the city.
With tickets harder to get each day, the sites have become a place for all to join. Despite early reports that Sochi wasn't fully prepared for the Games, fans are enjoying every moment, and avid Olympic fans who have been following the Winter Olympics even before the Sochi Games are already looking ahead to 2018, when the global event will be held in Pyeongchang.
So far, everything has been fantastic. The volunteers have been really helpful whenever we're getting lost, and yeah, everything's been really well organized. And
so we went to Vancouver in 2010. We've been here, and now 2018 we're planning to go to see the next set of games.
To these fans, the only pity is that the Olympics last for just a little over 2 weeks, and another wait of 4 years is right around the corner, just as it is for the athletes. 송지선, ARIRANG News, Sochi.
And on to the latest results from day 10 of medal games yesterday from Sochi, and what kind of events to look forward to on day 11 of medal events today. We turn to our Lee Tae-ho. Tae-ho, take it away.
Good afternoon, everybody. Let's go ahead and kick things off today with the results of the action on day 10 at the Sochi Winter Olympics. First, anticipation is building for the start of the women's figure skating competition on Wednesday, and the order for the short program has been set. Team Korea's two 16-year-olds drew early slots. Park So-yeon is skating second in Group 1, while Kim Hae-jin will be going fifth in Group 2. And Korea's figure skating queen Kim Yeon-ah will be skating in the middle of the pack. She'll be skating fifth in Group 3. Now, her two biggest rivals in the competition, Yulia Lipnitskaya and Mao Asada, will be skating in Group 5, skating first and last, respectively. And now moving on to the results of the two-man bobsled event that concluded yesterday. There were high hopes for Team Korea, but when all was said and done, the Team A had finished the competition in 18th place with a time of 3 minutes 49.27 seconds for the 4 races. Still, it was the team's best finish ever, so congratulations are definitely in order. Russia claimed the gold medal with a time of 3 minutes 45.39 seconds, while Switzerland won the silver and Team USA took home the bronze. The Korean women's curling team wrapped up their first ever Olympic appearance yesterday in a match against the world number 2, the ladies of Team Canada. And despite being the lowest ranking team in the Olympics, Team Korea managed to beat Japan, Russia, and the United States for a record of 3 wins, 6 losses, and they finished 8th out of 10th. Although they won't be advancing to the semifinals, all eyes will be on them for the next 4 years as they prepare for the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. Now, things have not been turning out the way many expected for Team Korea at the Winter Games, but it still has some chances to add a few more medals to its tally. And some of those chances will be coming up today on day 11 of the action at the 2014 Sochi Winter Olympics. Although the men haven't had as much luck on the ice as they wanted, speed skater Lee Seung-hoon still has a great shot at landing a medal today during the men's 10,000-meter competition. The women of Team Korea will also be looking to boost their medal tally, and they're heading into the 3,000-meter relay as the heavy favorites. Good luck to all the athletes, and we'll be wrapping things up today with a look at what to watch for tonight and the current medal standings. I'm Lee Tae-ho, and I'll be back again tomorrow with all of the latest from the 2014 Sochi Winter Games.
And for a look at the weather conditions, let's go over to our Michelle Park. Michelle, what does the weather have in store for the athletes in Sochi today?
Well, Conn-young, temperature in Sochi have dropped quite a bit, which is good news for the athletes. But it's going to be rainy day today with a little bit of breeze. Now, moving over to Korea, it's a bit chillier than yesterday, but the temperatures have mostly gone up above 0, and it looks like this will continue throughout the whole week. Now, for more details, let's move over to our satellite map. A heavy snow advisory is still in effect in the mountainous areas of Gangwon-do and Gyeongsangnam-do province. Meanwhile, the southern provinces can expect a little bit of rain. Now going over to our readings. Seoul will top out at 6 in the afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Gyeongju and Busan will peak up to 9 and 6 degrees respectively. Now down on to Jeju Island, it's going to be a gloomy day with a high of 9. Dokdo will get up to -2, while Mankumgang tops out at -9. Well, that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park, and back to you, Conn-young.
Well, thank you, Michelle, for that. And that brings us to the end of this newscast. But stay tuned to ARIRANG. We have a lot more coming your way on Early Edition at 6.